Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Bricks King podcast, where I'm going to bend your ear about Lego, review those amazing bricks of plastic, and discuss what is new and up and coming around the Lego world. I'm your minifig host, Matt. Let's build on it. Welcome in, everybody. How you doing today? Hopefully you're doing quite well. Today we've got another Star Wars episode. Can you believe it? I know. You're looking at the description saying, or the title and stuff saying, no, this can't be. No, this can't be at all. So it is. I do have a special guest. It was a great interview, a good buddy, and I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Hi guys. So Star Wars today. You did not read the title incorrectly. I can promise you. This is a big one. I'm gonna let Tim say the name of this thing because I'm not gonna butcher it. I think I know how to say it, but you know, we were just chatting before about the purists out there, that there's a lot of people that know a lot. So I'm joined by TK Bricks, Tim. He's a fan media like myself. You can find him on Instagram. Tim, do you do TikTok?
I have a little bit of content on TikTok, but not actively. I'm just active on Instagram. So
you can find Tim on Instagram with all his Star Wars glory. We'll give that to you here at the end. So you got to make sure you stick around to the end. So Tim, thanks for joining me today on this lovely Saturday afternoon to talk Star Wars.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm always up for talking Star Wars.
Well, I'm glad somebody is. Look, we can talk about the original trilogy. We can talk about the prequel trilogy, maybe the later three films, but all the offshoots, I'm like, I have no idea. All the little other series, I have no idea. So, so Tim, you were fortunate enough to be one of those awesome people out there to get this giant Star Wars set. This thing is absolutely huge. It releases on October 1st, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That is correct. October 1st for insiders and October 4th for everyone else. And I always put this out there. Insiders is free to join. Just sign up on lego.com.
So do I. It costs you nothing. You might as well get something back in return. Some
right.
Free points to spend on stuff. This is a big one. It has over 5,000 pieces. The price point in Star Wars never ceases to amaze me how high they will go. At $650, it's a pretty big boy. So I'll let you say the name of this thing so I don't butcher it.
Yes, it's the Venator-Class Republic Attack Cruiser, colloquially known as just the Venator. It's pretty easy. It's well known. Venator, yeah. Well known with the Clone Wars, the animated series that we Star Wars fans love and adore.
So the animated series, are you surprised, before we get into details of this thing, are you surprised to see something from that series in a UCS scale?
Not really. We as Star Wars fans have, I especially love the Clone Wars, and Lego knows that the Clone Wars is loved by many. I know they love the original trilogy, Lego does, and it sells very well. But the Clone Wars went on for many years, and there were a lot of fans of the Clone Wars. They put out a previous wave, 10 years ago or so, and put out many play scale vehicles and shut that down. I don't know the exact year, but it's been 5-6 years ago at least that they've basically shut down that theme. They've sprinkled a few sets here and there during different years. But to your question, no, I'm not surprised. We've been talking about this particular ship for years, as long as I can remember, hoping one day we would get a UCS scale Venator, and here it is. Sometimes I pinch myself thinking, is this real? Because this thing is glorious. It's magnificent. It's so well done. And it's everything that I could have imagined it would be. So half of me is a little bit surprised this is reality, but it's nice that Lego's listening to its fans for the most part. Now, there are some things that we can talk about in Lego Star Wars that we think Lego can do better with. But for the most part, they do a pretty good job, and we definitely got what we were looking for in this.
Well, it is very large. It is quite impressive how big it is for. I don't know anything about the Clone Wars stuff, but it's really big. There's a lot of. I was looking at this initially when the press kit came out for this. I was looking at some of the photos and just the detail with just obviously you have the greebling and everything, but the cannons and the little stations that you see on these giant ships. There's a lot of really intricate detail just on the outside, and then seeing the inside frame of this, it's very, I don't know if it's complete technique on the inside. You can talk to that, but it seems like it's more than just a frame with a shell on it. It feels like everything kind of works very closely together to be able to seal up what used to be, or sometimes happens where you have these like naked spots where you can kind of see into it and you're like, oh, I can see a blue Technic beam or something like that. So what are your thoughts on that between the outside and then how the central frame is?
The designer did a very good job with this one. And going back to what you said with gaps, you'll see that with a lot of early on. And when I say early on, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago with Lego Star Wars models where the catalog of pieces wasn't what it is today, you'll see a lot of gaps. And with this particular one, you don't see really anything. I don't remember looking over the model and peeking through it and go, wow, I wish they would have closed that up a little bit. You're right. This one's very well closed up. It fits well. The interior is 99% Technic, and it's done well. I don't really see this sagging over time. There is an Imperial Star Destroyer from the first one, the UCS Imperial Star Destroyer. I know had some sagging issues with the Technic frame not being able to hold the weight over time. I don't see that happening with this one. Of course, time will tell, but they did a really good job with the frame. And then putting the shell around it. You talked about the greebling is done well. The shape, all of the details with this particular model speaks really well to the source material, which I appreciate. In a lot of sets, you see the designer for some reason or another, whether that's budgetary constraints or something else, stray a little bit away from the source material. This designer did not do that. They were very particular in getting those details right. A couple things that I would change. They're not big things, but the stickers. There are, I believe, six big stickers in this set. And for $650, I wish Lego would have printed these pieces. That's not up to the designer. For that price point, I think the consumer deserves a printed piece. The bay doors on the top, if you're to look at the ship, I know you said you weren't familiar with the Clone Wars, but those two bay doors that run the length of the front of the ship that are dark red, those open up to allow ships to come out. Those don't open on this model. I wish they did. I wish there was a little bit of a micro interior inside. That's just a small complaint, not a big deal. I know this is designed for display purposes and not really designed to be played with. However, it is very swooshable. We'll say that. It's very sturdy. There's also a bay door on the bottom. And what's really cool about this particular design is that the bottom is detailed as well. If you look under the ship, it's meticulously designed. It's got a roller coaster track implemented in it for some greebling design and structural design. They've done a really good job with not only the top but the bottom of this as well. And then the thrusters, probably my favorite part. I know in my review I talked about the control tower being my favorite part, that top part where the bridge is mounted on, that the pilots fly the ship. But those thrusters are so well detailed and very large. And I know one of the concerns with the designer was, are these things going to sag because they're so heavy and they stick out far from the body of the ship? They implemented some secondary support elements to support the weight of those thrusters, so that they don't sag, and they did a really good job there too. Just overall, building this thing was incredible. It was fun, and I love the way it looks. We'll get into the minifigs here in a minute.
Well, you had mentioned the bottom, and I was going through the press kit and stuff like that, and I pulled up that photo that you had mentioned about from underneath, and it was really not something that I expected, because usually the bottom side of, like, whether it be UCS sets or collectible sets like this, it's kind of ugly on the bottom. And like you had mentioned, though, they actually really, there's some nice little detail, and you mentioned the roller coaster piece that you can see in there. Really shocked to see really something like that. And then the engines, the exhaust, whatever, those look disgustingly cool. I'm looking at them right now. That is really cool. And some cool parts usage there to just get different textures and designs. And hopefully, I would assume over time it won't sag based on the love and attention that they've given to everything else in here. I obviously don't have it in hand, but I don't foresee that being a problem if they followed what they've done with everything else on this so far.
Yeah, I think sag is obviously a concern when you're dealing with plastic. These large thrusters have several long axles that hold all of the engine pieces and engine elements that you see in there. And over time, obviously, those plastic pieces are going to bend under weight and duress. But like I said, they thought about that. They put some secondary supports towards the end of the two large thrusters on each side to support those. So the designer knew that this might be a concern and tried to mitigate that risk of it sagging over time, which I appreciate. There's only time will tell whether this thing will sag. I don't think there is a way for them to, maybe there is, I'm not a scientist, whether they can, age the model and put it under some sort of stress test to determine what it's going to look like in 10 years. But that would be cool if they did, but I don't think there's a way that, at least they're not doing it. But yeah, they thought of that. And back to the I guess it would be called the ventral side of the ship, the underneath, that's for $650. We need this. If you're going to ask a consumer to pay $650, this is what they're looking for. That crisp detail that, I know Lego is not an exact replica, nor is it ever marketed as an exact replica. There are other companies that make exact replicas of Star Wars and other IPs, but this is pretty dang close. The designer really tried to get close to possible as he could, and really did a good job.
So you had mentioned about it's not an exact replica because it is Lego. There's certain constraints that they have to work within. However, it seems like it's been, accepted pretty well by the community in general from just some different channels and stuff that I've been on. How have your followers and people that, check in on your content, how have they responded to this?
Very well. Very well. I think they expected this to be good, and they got what they expected. There are a few complaints they had with the minifigs, which is probably the biggest topic in the Lego Star Wars community right now. And I know we're talking plastic toys, and for the most part, these toys are designed for children. So with that in mind, there are certain complaints that people bring about in every Star Wars set about the minifigs, and how a lack of detail or lack of specifics when it comes to torso printing needs to be addressed. And, Lego wants our feedback and deserves our feedback. So if it's done in a respectful way, then I believe they take that and do what they can to answer what we're asking for. So with this particular set, the Captain Rex, while I believe it is a good figure, has a couple things that could be improved upon. I don't know if you've heard about the helmet holes or not. Have you heard of that discussion?
I have not.
Okay. Well, these particular helmets that the clones wear have not had holes in them. There are two holes, or one hole on each side of the helmet that's mounted up high so it can hold a visor, which is what clones wear. A lot of clones wear in the show. Well, a lot of clones don't wear visors, and therefore they don't need holes on the side to hold a visor. Well, it doesn't look good to have holes in a helmet if they're not going to be used. It's just like it's aesthetically not good.
Mm-hmm.
And so recently, within the last, I think, 3 years, when they started adding these helmet holes so they could put visors on the clones. But on the clones that don't have visors, there's not an additional mold for that without holes. So it looks not as good as it could with the holes. So that's been a big complaint amongst the Lego Star Wars community. Now, people outside of this community are probably thinking, wow, you guys are picky. Well, yes, we are.
Especially at $650.
Now that, exactly. I can, most of us can let it pass in a set that's 20, 30, 40, even $80. Okay. But for $650, I think this particular minifig, Captain Rex Phase 2, which we haven't had for 10 years, should have not had these holes. They should have created a new mold for this particular helmet at $650. If you're going to ask $650, should get as close to the source material as you can. The other complaint with this particular one is he wears a comma, which is just a cape that goes around his waist. And this one had it printed, which is just two black lines on each side of his legs. It doesn't even wrap around. Okay. There's no side printing on his legs or the back. So we think he should have had an actual fabric waist cape, which, by the way, they are actively printing for other IPs in Lego at the moment. So however they make those, the process is there, the fabric's there. They just need to print an appropriate one for Rex and put it on him. Other than that, the minifigs are really, really good. We get Admiral Yularen, which is a young captain of the ship, captain of the Venator. He's nicely done. And then Rex comes with some arm printing, which is really nice. His helmet, other than the holes, is really well done. He's got some tally marks on his helmet, some back printing, and then the pauldron, which is a cloth pauldron. Should have been a little smaller, but we got it. That's mounted on his left arm. And then we get a nicely printed plaque, which I will mention. We have been really wanting these plaques not to have stickers. I'm sure you put together one of these sets with a large sticker.
It's horrible.
It is, because if you mess up, it's really hard to get it back off. So this is a printed plaque. We have now had, believe this is the third UCS set that has a printed plaque. The UCS X-Wing that we got in the spring, and then the UCS Razor Crest, which we got last fall, both had printed plaques. And then an exclusive 20th anniversary Clone Wars printed brick that will only be for this particular set was included as well, which looks really sharp. So other than those few minor details that I mentioned with Rex, the plaque, the stand with the two minifigs, and the printed brick is very, very solid.
Well, and I'm glad you brought it up, because it was going to be one of those questions I had looking at that plaque. Is it a sticker or is it printed? Because like you said, they are probably the most insanely difficult sticker to place, because you get the slightest mess up, it's done.
Yep.
It's done. I know there's always complaints about minifigs about something. I like the fact that there are options out there, like you had said, printing on cloth and stuff. It is being done. It can be done, and it's fairly newer in the Lego realm at this point. But it's always going to be one of those things. You've got a perfect recreation of the ship. You just have you're almost there. You just that little bit further away. They always say, like, in racing, the last 1% is the hardest 1%. And it's like, you've got the 99. You just, this little bit extra and it's 100%. Everybody is set and done and nobody's complaining, which, I mean, I don't honestly know how much they care if somebody's really complaining, but you get my point. So I don't know. I don't know what else to say about that, or what to even think, or if it's going to change in the future.
I think it will change. They obviously have been listening to the community. I mean, they do market research just like any other toy manufacturer, seeing what people want. I'm sure there is someone in charge at Lego of monitoring social media to find out what people like and dislike about their products. I mean, in the land, that's a big part of our, I don't want to say responsibility, but we are a conduit between Lego and our community. And Lego sees that. The designers see our feedbacks in our comment feeds. I believe they listen to that and make changes to their designs based on some of that feedback. So this is more than a wish. I think the helmet holes will eventually go away and they will have 2 molds and use them appropriately. Just because it's such a large topic of concern amongst the community, and Star Wars is so important to Lego as a company as far as bringing in money. Other than City, I don't know where it ranks as far as what it does for profits or whatnot, but Star Wars has got to be up there. So it's partially a hope, but I believe they will fix or change some of these things in regards to minifigs and continue to get better.
Well, I think it can be done. And like you said, they do all this market research, and the design teams do listen. And when those of you that are listening, every time you fill out a survey that comes from Lego, all of that data is taken, and there are people that sit in a room and go over this stuff. Pulling back the curtain a little bit. When Tim and I or any other fan media, do a review on something and we turn in a report, that goes to that design team and they pour over that kind of stuff. So comments that you leave, or whether it be on social media or you send emails, because that's primarily how I hear about things. All of that stuff gets, turned in like, hey, so-and-so said they would have rather seen this, or this color shade of gray wasn't quite accurate. Mm-hmm. There's always those things, so that when new parts come about, part of it is, we need a new fern piece for the Rivendell set. But then there's also, people have been asking for this, so we need to make this in a new color. We have the opportunity. We can use it here, here, and here. There's just so much. So your comments, as trivial as you may think they are, on anybody, like if you're talking somebody that's got 500,000 followers on YouTube or whatever, every little comment can count. I don't know if it does, but every comment can count. So those of you that may have checked out Tim's stuff already, every comment, oh, this is great, but I really wish the holes. All right, well, you've got 100,000 people complaining about holes in a helmet that is not needed. Well, there's potential for change.
Absolutely. And feedback is absolutely important. And both you and I and every other ambassador, as long as the comments are done in a respectful way, really want that feedback. Criticize as much as you want. Lego wants that feedback. That's the only way we're going to get stuff that we want, get things changed. So the more feedback, the better.
Well, before we let Tim prattle on anymore about this Star Wars loveliness, I'm kidding. We have to take a quick break. Back in a moment. Well, and you had mentioned, how to be, your feedback. Is it constructive? Is it whining or is it constructive? And there's a way to put it in professionally, especially from you and I saying, oh, hey, we not the biggest fan of this. Here's why. Here's what I would like to see or what the community would like to see moving forward. And that's the way to handle it. Like an adult, right?
Yes.
Not a 5-year-old that's mad. However, so with this whole big Venator, what is probably one of your favorite parts of the build? Was there a moment where you're building it and you just sit back? I know I've had them where you just sit back and you're like, man, that is cool. That is really, really cool. Did you have any moments like that during the build?
I've already talked about the thrusters, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the control tower, and that's the part that sticks up from the ship. And in the source material, it tilts slightly at an angle. It's not mounted flush with the body, so it's tilted a little bit. What was really nice to see is that the designer recognized that tilt and designed that control tower to tilt ever so slightly. It's just maybe 2 or 3 degrees at most, but you can tell that it's tilted. Building that control tower, and I believe, there's a little bit of debate in the community about whether this is Anakin Skywalker's Venator. I believe it is, because the bridge at the very tip top of that control tower is dark red. Normally, in a normal Venator, it's colored like the body, the light bluish gray color. This one particularly had the dark red at the top. That's a flagship Venator, and most of us think that this is a signal. However, the designer did not mention that anywhere in the instructions, but we believe this is Anakin Skywalker's Venator from the Clone Wars, which is kind of a cool nod to the Clone Wars. Even, like I said, the designer didn't mention that. So building that particular portion, the control tower, there's a little light blue 1x2 plates layered in the top of it, which signify a level in the control tower, which gives you the builder a sense of scale of how large this particular destroyer is. It's a large ship. I think it would be really neat to light this up, and so I might at some point put little mini lights in here to light those blue elements up. And of course, the thrusters on the back, I think, would be really cool lit up as well. But that control tower is probably my wow moment.
Very interesting. And you had mentioned, with the angle, the degrees, just ever so slightly. That's all it takes. Mm-hmm. It's a lot to do in Lego, but if you can get that, like you said, that just that slight forward angle, you just made a whole community impressed, happy. And it's that attention to detail, which is what should happen in a set this big, right? Anything at this price point, there should be, pouring over the source material. Well, this, like you said, it's just angled slightly ever so forward, or this color of this. Those are the details that the fan community, because fan means fanatic. It's short for fanatic. Fanatics are pouring over those details already. And then when this pops out and photos pop out and they're like, oh, but did they? And then you get a chance to build it, like you said, and it's ever so slightly, and it's happiness. Everybody's happy.
Yep. And I fully believe that the majority of the community will reflect in terms of their feedback and their fandom, their reactions will reflect what we're seeing in the comments on our initial reviews here. I think this is going to sell well. It's going to be on the shelf for a long time. I would suspect this will probably be, I have no knowledge of this, insider information, none of that, but I think this is probably at least a 5-year shelf life set. Wow. It's that good. It's a signature ship. It means a lot to Star Wars. And I think this one you might see longer than the Razor Crest. Razor Crest has already been out a year. It obviously didn't stick around for too long. Spoiler alert here for anybody who hasn't seen the first season, it blows up. But I think this has a long shelf life, which I think says a lot about the design itself. I think you'll see the Falcon and the Venator. I don't know much longer the Falcon has a shelf life, maybe another 5 years, who knows? But this one's going to be around a long time, and I sincerely think that the reaction to this is going to be overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah, I would have to wholeheartedly agree with you. It looks really nice. I can't wait to see when I go to the Lego store in October to see this thing on display, because I know they'll have it out in the window. Just to see the scale. Obviously you can see it, in your videos and stuff like that, and other content that is out there, people that have already built it, but it's different just seeing it in person and just getting the scale. It's the same with the Gringotts, the bank. Seeing that, in person in the scale, you're just like, man, that is much bigger than I thought. So hopefully this does have a long shelf life. You said maybe another 5 years for the Falcon, and I'm like, God, already still another 5 years?
It's already been 6.
It seems like they don't move off the shelf, but somebody's buying them because they're still around. So any other little details or add-ins that you want to put in here about this, Tim?
Yeah, there are a couple small little details that the builder will appreciate. Of course, we mentioned the greebling in the beginning. It's very well done on the ship. It's not too much. I believe, is done just right. I think greebling can be done in excess at times, and sometimes not enough, but this is done very well. There are 2 docking doors on either side. One of them is open, the other one is closed. They did those really well. The one that is open has a little nod to Republic gunship, which is a UCS set that from a few years ago. This designer designed that as well, and there's a little 3-piece scale model of that gunship in the open docking bay, which is kind of cool. The turbo lasers, the little turrets, there are 4 small ones up next to the control tower, which are stationary but done really well and to scale. And then there's a medium dual turbo laser cannons on either side towards the front of the ship, which are stationary as well, but add just that little bit of detail, and again, to the source material. And I think lastly, it really never gets mentioned because it's designed to sort of blend in and disappear, but the stand is very well executed. It's sleek. It does its job in terms of holding the Venator up off the ground. Very well designed. One of the big complaints with the Imperial Star Destroyer, the UCS version that was released back in 2019, is the stand was a little shaky. When you built that and tried to shift it a little bit, that stand moved as you moved the ship, and gave you a little pause like, is this going to fall over? You don't get that with this. This was very well designed and blends in well with the ship, doesn't stick out like an eyesore. So again, very well designed. And the front has a small rounded nose, again, like the source material. That was an interesting part of the build as well. I enjoyed putting that together. That's probably, I think we've covered pretty much everything, other than the back is the way it's supposed to be. I think we'll probably get a little bit of pushback thinking the when looking at the back of the ship, not the engines, but up the back of the control panel. It's not very detailed. It's just some sides of some tall sloped bricks, but that's the way the source material looks. So I think it was important to stay with the source material rather than add some not accurate details. So other than that,
awesome.
a fantastic fantastic design, and I can't wait to hear feedback from the community on this.
Well, we've got about a week,
Yep.
a week and a day before it pops out. And I know that on those days when you see a Star Wars comes out, if you're not in line, like the two Lego stores that are in our area, which we're fortunate enough to have, are both in a mall, of course. And if you're not there when the doors open, usually the manager says, if we get 20, 25, we're lucky. I have no idea. So if you live in Dallas, I have no idea. I have no insider information on that. That's just what it has generally been in the past. So if you're number 100 in line, you're definitely out of luck. And I know there's going to be people that fight the server the minute it releases. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
I expect some please wait loading messages and a lot of people hitting F5 refresh on their computers. My suggestion is get in line early, bring some snacks and maybe a soft seat. And if you really want this, get there early.
Yeah, this is, I think this is probably going to be one of these Star Wars builds that stays, I would say, October, 3 months basically till Christmas time. I think you're going to be playing that game of, immediate back order to out of stock, and then it's going to come in stock, and as soon as it is, it's gone, because you have all the fan geek sites that are out there, all that kind of stuff. And I don't mean that as a derogative to anybody. Like, there are sites like Star Wars Geek and Geek, whatever. As soon as they have people that are mining the website every single time it changes status, and then it puts out a tweet or puts out something on Instagram, like it's in stock, it's out of stock, it's in stock, it's all back order. So I think it's going to be hard to catch us if you don't get it initially during the holiday season. I think it's going to be a rough get.
Completely agree. And again, since we're so close to the holidays, I anticipate this doing exactly what you said. I think this might be like the Titanic. That set went through what you just talked about for what seemed like a year, where it would go back in stock for a matter of hours and then back out of stock again. And then you'd wait another month and over again until it finally stayed in stock. But that was a year plus down the road before that happened. So I can see that happening with this set as well.
Well, Tim, before we head on out of here, will you please tell everybody where they can follow you on Instagram?
You can find me at TK Bricks on Instagram. I post mostly Star Wars content, but I am a Harry Potter fan as well. And I have some other themes that I'm interested in, not as much as those two, but I sprinkle in Jurassic Park and some of the icons. I love icons models and some other Batman and a few Marvel sets here and there. But for the most part, I am a Star Wars geek like many of you are. So TK Bricks on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, Tim, thanks so much for joining me in the community today and just sharing your knowledge. I know, like you had mentioned before we started, that there's so many more that have a much deeper knowledge base than you do even. But I still appreciate you coming on and sharing the early details about this so that people can either determine what payments to make here in the next week, what bills they're going to let slide to get their Star Wars or not. And so again, thanks so much, Tim.
Thanks for having me on, Matt. And last but not least, may the Force be with you.
Well, that'll do it for this episode. I had a blast talking with Tim, Mr. TK Bricks, chatting all the things that are Lego, of course, with Star Wars. And, Tim is just a really great guy to chat with in general. So there is that. There will be more coming in the future, some Star Wars stuff. We've got another project that we plan on working together to discuss with you. We'll see. Maybe sometime in the end of October. It depends how everything aligns, and maybe November. We just don't know. Busy schedules for everybody. So until we meet again, I'm your Minifigure Ghost, Matt. Let's bet on it.